Hello, this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. Ukraine has been recently increasing its economic cooperation with many major partners. And today we want to talk about developments in French, American, and Canadian economic relations. We welcome to our studio today Victor Dovgan, Deputy Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine for European Integration. Hello, Victor. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
So we know recently there's been several trade missions and some changes in economic relationships between Ukraine and let's talk first perhaps about with France. There's recently a trade delegation here, is my understanding, that we've seen some developments come from.
Absolutely. Today we had the governmental commission between Ukraine and France for the first time since 6 years. Very important, and specifically in the area of transport and infrastructure, we have a lot of issues to be negotiations. I would start maybe with the aviation. We raised the issue of open skies between our countries. We want to make it fully liberal and to have more aviation companies coming to our market from France, as we see it on a bilateral basis with other countries members of the European Union. So far as the price of the tickets between Kyiv and Paris is the highest on the European direction, so we want to change it.
And what's the reason for that?
The reason is very simple. France always responded since 2 years. We need to wait until the agreement on common aviation area, so-called open sky agreement between the European Union and Ukraine will be signed. We explained that this agreement is blocked due to the Brexit and dispute between the Great Britain and Spain over the airport Gibraltar. So we need to move on a bilateral basis, as we did it with Germany, with Poland, with Great Britain and Spain and Italy. So it was raised on a high political level. And I think we reached at least preliminary understanding and hope that the aviation authorities in the nearest future will conclude the necessary amendments.
So this is definitely a major development, and especially very important for not just tourists, but for bilateral business partnerships for business as well.
Absolutely.
What were some of the other major issues that were discussed?
We have the big interest of the French companies investing in Ukrainian infrastructure. We are right now in the negotiations between Ukrainian Railway and the company Alstom on delivery, on supply and joint production of the electric locomotives in Ukraine. Some of the Vinci and Bouygues French companies are interested in constructing the roads and basically the toll roads, the first pilot projects of the toll roads in Ukraine. We have as well Airbus interested on cooperation with Antonov and on supply of the helicopters for Ukrainian government. So we have a lot of issues to be discussed and further implemented.
And so this is one of the first steps. I mean, this was the first kind of economic delegation in 6 years. So this is showing there's a lot of good promise here, especially bringing up these topics. And another first we've had was the American trade delegation, the trade mission, which was the first time in almost a decade that they've been here. And what do you see as being the reason for this sudden revival in trade missions coming to Ukraine?
No, I think it was a good result because last week it was Investment Council in Washington, D.C. And this is good result that specifically the American business assesses the investment climate in Ukraine. So it means they have the interest, and since decade, about 30 companies are coming on a high-profile level, on a CEO level, coming to Ukraine, discussing the areas infrastructure, agriculture, and energy, 3 main areas of Ukraine, and not only discussing and finding out what is going on, but offering concrete joint ventures, concrete projects to be implemented.
And so are you seeing some other areas opening up from these three spheres? I know, especially energy, has been a very major
I will not talk about the energy because I'm not working in the Ministry of Energy. But for instance, the door was opened by the General Electric when the contract in March this year was signed on supply of SETI locomotives and then establishing joint production in Kremenchuk in Ukraine. This is 1 billion contract. So maybe it was the like ring bell opening the door for the big American companies coming. We're talking with Greenbrier about the productions of wagons and operating the cargo wagon fleet here in Ukraine. We're talking about a number of companies as well on the investing in the roads, on bringing the IT solutions in ports of Ukraine. So again,
these are kind of different spheres that have really opened up more. Do you see this as also being a part of Ukraine turning more towards looking for Western partners and more and away from Russian partners as much?
To some extent, yes, because even in the area of trade, yes, we signed 4 years ago the free trade agreement with the European Union. Then a year ago we signed the free trade agreement with Canada. It means that all these companies and Ukrainian exports and transit as well redirects from Russian
markets to the
Western markets. Yes.
Right. And so this is so what we're seeing is what we should be seeing is with the open doors of these FTAs that there's more companies that are able to come in, Ukrainian companies able to export, but the most important thing has been the investment climate in Ukraine. And so these trade missions and delegations are showing that's what's really having an influence on investors.
No, I think it's the mission, yes, but then the follow-up contracts will show that the investors really care about the doing business in Ukraine.
Right, and that's the bottom line, right? It's you can come, you can look, but are you going to actually want to go through the investments? Sure. And now we have coming up. Well, first, what are some other things that have come of this trade mission from the U.S.?
Again, we raise the issue of the area connection, because as soon as we don't have joint borders so far with United States and Canada, we are focusing on bringing, as you mentioned, tourists and business on the aviation. So far we have direct connections only operating by Ukraine International, and we need competition in this market, and the competition can be done by Delta, by American Airlines, by Air Canada. So we attract this company, come to Ukraine and operate not only to Kyiv, but as well to the number of cities in Ukraine, to Odessa, to Lviv, to open the Ukraine for business and for the tourists as well.
And or any other opportunities that haven't been spoken about or that you're seeing on the horizon that you'd like to see more interest in? No.
Usually investors are interested in the ports, because this is where the American companies export from Ukraine agricultural products, and they have big Cargill, Bunge, they have big investment projects in the ports. Ports are at the stake. They plan as well to increase capacities, but we want as well bring their attention to the different spheres, more inland, yes, airports, roads, railway. So we want to have more foreign investment in the other sectors as well.
And also, there's the internal vision that perhaps this competition will increase the ability of Ukrainian companies to successfully bid for this type of business as well. I mean, is that something you're also looking at, is trying to build the capacities of Ukrainian businesses to operate abroad?
Absolutely, and when we check just the railway market, we see the deficit of the cargo wagons, first of all, for the companies. And Greenbrier is interested in building the wagons here and operating the big cargo wagon fleet in Ukraine. So they understand the market, they understand the needs of the local business as well, and they want to interfere with investment, which means money, and know-how as well, which is as well very important.
This is absolutely invaluable is having things built here. And I think not too long ago there was an agreement or interest, I believe, in either Boeing building new aircraft with Antonov, if I'm not mistaken. Was that also an agreement that came up? Was building the idea of cooperation between Antonov and Boeing when it comes to parts
It was not discussed today, but yes, they have a MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, on the joint project on supply of the U.S. engines, some IT solutions for Antonov. We hope that the cooperation will result in concrete products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's something for us to look forward to. And so on the sphere, then we look at Canada and Ukraine economic cooperation. And there's something coming up in the near future when it comes to this type of investment as well.
Canada is very important because we have the first anniversary of the free trade agreement of Ukraine, and we see the trade increases, bilateral trade between Ukraine and Canada, and the issue of transport as logistics is of crucial importance because you need to transship these goods from one country to another, to decrease the logistic costs, to have maybe new facilities in the ports. Again, we offered, as I mentioned, to Air Canada to operate on the direct flights because we see that our passengers, specifically from the Western Ukraine, is not using even the Ukrainian International and Borispol airport, but using Warsaw and Frankfurt airports. So we want to have our passenger flying from our airports with Canadian or US companies. And specifically with Canada, they're interested in investing in different areas, processing the goods and then re-exporting them back to Canada, and then through the free trade agreement, Canada and United States towards the United States as well. So we have the big market. And vice versa, importing to Ukraine, process it, and then exporting to the European Union, where we as well have the free trade agreement. And in this area, the issue, again, of transport, logistics, port infrastructure, railway infrastructure, wagons, is necessary. That's what we discussed.
I mean, that's the bottom line, is the infrastructure. Now, when the Canadian Free Trade Agreement was created, it had some limitations at the time. There was a lot of great zero and low tariffs, but I think it focused only on goods. Was there an idea or discussions about opening it up to more spheres or maybe to services as well?
We actually limit. We as well offered to cancel all the limitation on the aviation. This is a full access for the aviation services of Ukraine. I think it's premature maybe to start reviewing the agreement between Ukraine and Canada, because we need to calculate what sectors are being developed, where we have, even with the European Union, we still are not reviewing the free trade agreement. However, it operates more than 2 years into full force. So again, it must be some time, yes, for analysis, and then for the mutual compromise and benefits for both countries.
And so, looking back over the last year, what have some of the successes been with the free trade agreement with Canada?
I have no idea, because I'm not responsible for the trade between Ukraine and Canada. But the success in the transport sector was renewal of the direct flights by Ukrainian International from Kyiv to Toronto. This is a big success.
Absolutely.
And it was raised both by business, because, maybe I'm always trying to reiterate this issue. It's simple to have the direct flights, but it's very important because right now the world is global, and the businessman in Toronto checking that he needs to get to Kyiv, not 9-10 hours by direct flight, but 16 hours.
Absolutely. The layovers
I don't want to invest to Ukraine. I will invest, where? Warsaw, Poland. That's good. So even such simple issues impact to the great extent the investment climate.
Absolutely, and that's a great way of looking at that, because you're right. People don't usually, they look at direct flights as a way to save time, but it is kind of something that could turn you away from doing business, especially when it starts to start a business. You need to spend a lot of time, maybe back and forth.
And then you start with the passengers, then it's cargo aviation, then investing to the ports, then creating added value facilities on processing near the port. So step by step, you have the big infrastructure project.
Which is the foundation of everything, is infrastructure. And so what are you seeing in the near future? I know with Canada, we're looking at an investment roadshow. So what's coming up in the near future when it comes to this type of investment?
It's difficult to say about the transport because so far all the investment is focused on the agriculture, some energy projects and IT solutions. We can use some IT solutions for the smart or digital infrastructure, how we name it. It's again for the ITS systems to control traffic, weight, cameras could be used as well. But so far we as a basis, as a milestone for the different sector, because again for the investment to the agriculture, the investor will calculate the logistic costs, and he wants to be focused that this logistic cost will be more and more decreased at the end of the day to increase the marginality of the export.
Okay. So any parting words before we go? Anything that you think that either investors or people who are watching our show who may be interested in investing in Ukraine, what's something that you would want them to really know about that?
Welcome to Ukraine. We wait for you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Victor, for being with us today.
Thank you.
And that was Victor Dovgan, Deputy Minister of Infrastructure of Ukraine for European Integration. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned with UATV for more.